Okay, welcome to another video. Today we're going to take a look at a distribution that I'm not really super familiar with despite it being around for quite some time. So Mageia, which is an RPM distribution, was originally forked from Mandriva around about 10 years ago. They've just released a new version, which is version 8, which is what we're going to be taking a look at today. Now we've just booted into one of their ISOs and there's a few different ways that you can go about this. We're using the classic installer with the drakx installer, but they do also offer live environments of either Plasma, XFCE or GNOME. As per usual, we're going to run through this installer, install it natively onto the main computer here and take a little look around. So first things first, we need to choose our language. So we're going to go into Europe, look for English British, which is right about there, and go to the next step. So we've got a little license agreement here. I'm just going to sort of scroll through it and pretend I've read it in depth and click accept and move to the next step. So it's now installing driver for the hard disk drive controller, and we can now choose our keyboard layout, which conveniently for me is already on UK keyboard. Next. Right, so here's where we're going to do our drive partitioning. I'm not quite sure what sort of partition layout this is going to use by default or what file systems it does use, and it doesn't appear to really give us a preview of it, so we'll check all that out once we are installed and on the desktop. But for now we're going to do use free disk space and let it create the partitions for us. So it's now formatting those partitions. Right, so we've now reached the media selection. So the following media have been found and will be used during install. So we've got the core release, which is all of the free release stuff. And then we also have the non-release there for the installer. Do you have a supplementary installation medium to configure? I do not, so let's go to the next step. Right, so we can either enable or disable the core free and the non-free stuff. I'm going to leave both enabled because I'm probably going to try some non-free applications like Steam once we are fully installed. Next. Okay, so we do have a little desktop selection screen here, and the main two are Plasma and GNOME, but there's also a third box here which says custom, where you can install other desktop environments like Mate, XFCE, LXQT, etc. Usually I'm a Plasma guy, but because I haven't used GNOME in a little while on one of these distributions, we're going to check out GNOME on Mageia. Next. Right, so it's now installing and it's giving us a time remaining of around about 3 minutes. So I'm going to pause the video here and we'll come back to it once this step has complete. Right, so that main part of the installation has finished and we're now onto the user management where we're going to create our root password as well as our user account. So let's do our root password and confirm it. And we can even change our icon, but we can only change the colour. So let's scroll through until we find a colour that I like. So the green might be the one. Yeah, so I think we're going to go for the green. There we go. Right, user account. Type in our passwords and then we can go to the next step. Right, it's preparing initial startup program. Be patient, this may take a while. Okay, so we've now got onto a step where we can choose a monitor. So we can do custom, plug and play, vendor or generic, and in vendor you can go through all of the makes of your monitor and find the one just for you. I'm going to leave it on plug and play and go to the next step. Right, so you've got a little summary here and we even have little boxes next to it saying configure, where we can change a few things up. That's pretty cool, but from what I can tell everything is looking good as is, so we're going to go to the next step, which is installing the bootloader. Okay, updates. You now have the opportunity to set up online media. This allows you to install security updates. To set up those media, you will need to have a working internet connection. So we're connected via Ethernet, so we're going to go ahead and let that do its security updates. Okay, so it's now running those updates, so I'm going to pause the video once more and then continue once it's finished. Right, so we've now got some more updates to grab, so you've got the opportunity to download updated packages. These packages have been updated after the distribution was released. They may contain security or bug fixes. So this is pretty cool, so it should save us some time updating once we are actually at the desktop. So we're going to go ahead and leave that on yes and grab those updates as well. But there's not really too much to get there, so congratulations, installation is complete. Remove the installation medium and press enter to reboot. So let's go ahead and do that and check out our Mageia GNOME desktop. And here we are, so we've booted up first time off disk and we are greeted with the welcome to Mageia welcome screen. So we're going to quickly run through these steps and then we'll take a look at everything else in this distribution. So welcome to Mageia. We're going to guide you through some important steps and help with the configuration of your newly installed system. Click on media sources to go to the first step. Right, so here we can configure the software repositories and it's got some little labels here. So we've got core, non-free and tainted. And tainted is these packages, for example, audio and video codecs, may infringe on patents or copyright laws in certain countries. We then have backports, which is for new versions of packages and new packages that do not meet the updates policy. Now we have a little note here letting us know that if we enable the online repos during installation, some sources should already be installed. So we shouldn't really need to add too many different sources here because we will have the free and non-free all ready to go. So it's going to open a new window here for configure media. So as we can see, we've already got the core updates as well as the non-free release updates, and the tainted updates are enabled as well as the 32-bit stuff. So we're going to leave it on that and then continue to the next step, which is update. Okay, so how Mageia manages updates. Mageia provides software which may be updated in order to fix bugs or security fixes. It's highly recommended to update your system regularly. An update icon will appear in your taskbar when new updates are available. To run updates, just click on the icon below and give your password. So we're going to do that now. There shouldn't really be too much that we need to grab because we did do those updates once we was in the installer. So it needs to contact the mirror to get the latest update packages. Please check that your network is currently running and do not ask me again. Okay. So we've got the little software management window here, but as you can see, the list is completely empty, which means we are fully up to date. So we can quit that and go to the next step, which is MCC, which stands for the Mageia Control Center, also known as drakx, and it's a set of tools to help you configure your system. So here we can do software management, hardware, network and internet, system, network sharing, local disks, security and boot. So this sounds a bit like what YAST is to OpenSUSE, and actually I kind of got a bit of OpenSUSE vibes during the installation as well. So we're going to open the Mageia Control Center, have a quick look at what we can do in here, continue with the welcome screen, and then we'll take a look at the rest of the desktop. So we have software management, so we can install and remove software. Let's have a quick look at this. So this is our GUI package manager, the Mageia Control Center. So we have a little search bar at the top, so we could just search for a package like htop, hit enter, and then click that to install with a right click maybe. There we go, we just click that and then click apply. And then of course we have the categories to the left, and clicking on any category will then fill that up in the main panel of the applications that fit that category. Nice, we'll check out actual installations of packages in just a moment. We then have update your system, which we've already done, and we can configure the updates frequency. Let's have a look at this. So here you can configure the updates applet. So the update frequency by default is 3 hours, and it can go as low as 1 and as high as 24, so pretty much once a day. I quite like that. We're going to leave it on the 3 though, and then continue with the rest of these steps. Okay, so that was everything in software management as well as configuring media sources. Next up we have hardware, so we can browse and configure the hardware as well as sound configuration, configure graphics for 3D effects and set up the graphical server. We then have mouse and keyboard, printer and scanner, as well as UPS for power monitoring. And then we have network and internet, so we can do things with our network connection as well as VPNs, proxies, host definitions and all of that good stuff. Then in system we have authentication and manage system services for enabling or disabling the services, manage, add and remove fonts and import Windows TM fonts, and then we have localization for date and time as well as the localization for the system. And then we have administration tools, so we can view the system logs, open a console as an administrator, manage users on the system, and let's just have a look at the GUI groups and users management system. So we've got some buttons here for add a new user to the system, add a group to the system, edit selected row, delete selected row, and then refresh the list. So this is the main user here. We've only got the one, so we can do a right click and do edit or delete, and let's have a look at the edit page. So here's the main user data here, so we can change the username as well as the password and the shell and the home directory. We then have account information, password information, and you can set a password expiration date. That's pretty cool. And then we have groups. So I don't know what groups it's actually added us to. It doesn't appear to be a lot. At the moment we are currently only in the Tyler group, so the primary group. We're probably going to want to add it to Will in just a moment as well, but we'll check all that out once we have finished with this. So okay, let's close that one off and then keep moving. And then we can also import Windows TM, documents the settings and manage the snapshots. So in network sharing, we can do things for the SMB, so the Windows shares, as well as NFS, shared drives and directories, and a WebDAV. So now in local disks, we can share your hard disk partitions and manage disk partitions. So we are going to open that because I want to see how it's done our partition layout. Please make a backup of your data first. Does it open up a backup program? No. Right, so here we are. So it does actually separate our home and a root partition, and the file system it's using is ext4, and then we also have a swap partition of 3.9 4GB. Pretty cool. Right, let's get out of that. And then we have security, so we can set up our firewall, configure system security permissions and audit, configure authentication for Mageia tools and parental controls. Then in boot we can set up auto login to automatically log in, set up boot system and set up display manager. Now I'm not 100% sure what display managers and things we're using, so we'll check that out as well. But while we are here, we didn't have the option to do the auto login, at least from what I could see in the actual installer, so we're going to set it up here. So do we want to auto login? We do indeed, and the default desktop, so I think we might be using Wayland, so we're going to quickly open up the about section for GNOME and then just see what display we are using. There we go, so the windowing system is Wayland and the GNOME version is GNOME 3.38.3. Okay, cool. So what we're going to do then is go onto Tyler and then go to GNOME, and that should be the default Wayland session and auto log us in when we start up or do a reboot. So let's go ahead and press OK. So that's pretty much everything there on the Mageia Control Center. I don't know if there's too much extra stuff we need to do here, but let's have a quick look. So install and remove software. So with Mageia you will find the software in the media repositories. Mageia users simply access these media via one of the software managers. So we have RPM Drake and DNF Dragora. So I do know that it has a package manager called URPMI, I think, but we also have access to DNF in this most recent version from what I can tell from the release notes. So I do believe RPM Drake is going to be that package that we looked at when we tried to install HTOP, and it is indeed. So let's just quickly have a look at DNF Dragora and then we'll continue. Okay, so we're going to need to actually install that if we wanted to use DNF Dragora on here as well as RPM Drake. But if we open up a terminal, you'll see that we do also have, so it's URPMI, I think is the sort of package manager that they use. There we go. But we also do have DNF, which if you've used Fedora, for example, you'll know how all of that works. That's pretty cool. So we will test out some package installations and we'll use a mixture. So we'll use their package manager for installing software the GUI way, and we'll also test out some stuff with DNF. So let's close that for now. And then we can also list applications from the wiki. And then next up we have applications. So here is a small selection of popular applications. So kind of like featured applications that you will see in some application stores. So that's pretty cool. So in featured we have audio codecs, Firefox, which I do believe is installed and is our default web browser, Qubit Torrent, VLC and Mageia Theme Extra. We might install that later and see what that's like. We then have games, and as you can see at the very top of the list we have Steam, and it does let you know that it is indeed a non-free application. We will install Steam, but we're going to install HTOP first, do a reboot, see how much RAM it uses before we start messing around with different applications. So internet, video, audio, office, graphics, system and programming. So your configuration, congratulations, you are now running Mageia. You are using Linux kernel 5.10.16. Brilliant. So we do have some more information here as well where we can get into the documentation, support and community. Okay, so I think we can remove that from our startup, quickly install HTOP, do a reboot, check the RAM, and then we'll start checking out how everything works. So to install an application, I'm going to go and type in install and remove, and we're going to do it their GUI way. And then much like we did before when we was going through the welcome screen, we're just going to search for HTOP, hit enter, press this little check bar here, click apply. So the following package is going to be installed, HTOP, and it's going to use 253 KB of additional disk space. So I'm going to pause the video here while it's installing this application, do a reboot, and then we'll jump straight back into it. Okay, so we're back in business after a fresh reboot, and we're using just over 800 megabytes on a fresh boot, which is not too bad really for a GNOME desktop, and it's just dropped down to 788, and there is our swap partition of 4 GB. So what we're going to do before we have a look through the applications, I do want to just see how it all works with the DNF package manager as well. So we're going to open up the terminal once more. We didn't need to close that last one, but there we go. So we're going to test it and just install something like GNOME disks with DNF and see how that all works. So we're going to go sudo DNF install GNOME disks. Is it disks on DNF or disk utility? Let's try utility. Okay, it's going to ask us for our sudo password, and Tyler is not in the sudo as file. So what we're going to do is go into root. We're going to open vsudo, and then we're going to have a look at what's going on here, and if we're already in the wheel, we'll just add the wheel to our group, and then we can use sudo. So let's just scroll down. Right, so it's already got that uncommented for the will, so everyone in the group will have sudo privileges, and I've only got the single user on here. So what we're going to do is close this off now, and then we're going to go straight into the users and groups, or the Mageia control center, and then we're going to go back into the groups and then add us to the will group, but we'll probably need to do a reboot for that to take effect. So where was that? Was that in system? It was. So we want to look for managing users, and then we're going to click our name, click edit, go straight over to groups, and then look for will, which is near the bottom there, and then click OK. So we're going to do a reboot, and then we're going to try use DNF once more using sudo. Okay, so we've just rebooted and then run the same sudo DNF install command, and now that we're in the will group, we do have sudo privileges. So we're going to go ahead and install GNOME disk utility using DNF. Okay, so that has finished with the command for the DNF, so we should now be able to find GNOME disks straight within our activities overview, and there it is. And while we're in here, I'm just going to quickly use this to add a drive to our FS tab file, because we're going to be using this to test out a game on Steam once we've installed Steam. So we're just going to go into additional and go into edit mount options, and this just saves us time opening the FS tab and doing it ourselves. So I'm just going to leave that mounted in mnt/steam. Okay, now that that's done, let's have a look at what actually comes installed out of the box. So as far as the actual implementation of GNOME, it's looking pretty vanilla to me. I don't see sort of loads of crazy extensions all over the place. Do we have a hot corner? I don't think we do we? We do have a hot corner actually. There you go. So it does have the hot corner enabled, but what we're going to do now is jump straight into the applications and see what we've got. So out of the box we have Cheese for webcam, Dasher, Deconf editor, document viewer and documents, Empathy and Evolution, which is actually one of my favourite desktop email clients, especially on the GNOME desktop. We then have extensions, Nautilus for files, FileZilla, which is quite handy if you sort of manage FTPs or SFTP servers, so I could use that for my website for example. And then we have Firefox as our default web browser, and let's just quickly open that up for the first time and see what version it is shipping with. It should be quite a nice new version, so let's go to more, oh wrong one, we want to go to help and about, and we are using the extended support release. So we've got the ESR version of Firefox of 78.7. So you might want to install a different web browser if you're not a massive fan of the ESR version of Firefox. Let's keep moving. So we then have GDA Control Center, GDA Browser, and GIMP, and let's just quickly see what version of GIMP we're running. So it's at least version 2.10, and if we go into about, it's version 2.10.22, which is all good for me. What else have we got? So we installed HTOP ourselves. We then have Inkscape, so it's nice to see GIMP and Inkscape both installed out of the box. We have the package manager there and the LibreOffice, and we will open up Writer to see which version of LibreOffice we've got and whether we've got dictionary support enabled out of the box. So it's at least version 7.0. Let's go into about, and it's version 7.0.4.2, which is nice and recent, and it's got the locale of ENGB, so we should be able to just type anything and then get the sort of autocorrect spelling there, which if you go into here you can see that it is enabled, and it does have the dictionary support out of the box, so it's already in good to go. Let's close that and then keep moving. So what else do we have? So that was all of the LibreOffice suite there. We have the control center, the welcome screen, music, so I think this is like GNOME Music or something of that effect. It is indeed, or Hey DJ, so I do think that is GNOME Music. Let's keep moving. So that was music. We then have NetApplet, Network Center. We have the parental controls there, Photos Planner, Polari, Power Statistics, Pulse Audio Preferences, and Pulse Audio Volume Control. So we have Rhythmbox installed out of the box as well, which is not my favourite music player, but there we go. We have Shotwell for images. We have Sound Juicer. I've not used Sound Juicer before. So no CD-ROM drive. Sound Juicer could not find any CD-ROM drives to read. So that looks like something to do with playing CDs or perhaps maybe even ripping them. Let's keep moving. We then have the sound recorder terminal, which isn't bound to the shortcut key of Control-Alt-T, so we will do that in a moment. We have text editor, which will be Gedit, transmission for our torrents, tweaks, and we'll have a quick look at tweaks now. So we're going to appearance. I don't know if we've got loads of themes, so we don't. We just have the Adwaita stuff, and then for icons we also just have Adwaita. Extensions wise, like I said, there really isn't a load of additional extensions here, so pretty much quite close to a stock GNOME experience. While we're in here though, we are going to go into our Windows title bar and add maximize and minimize. Okay, so I don't think there's too many other applications that we really need to take a look at. So as well as Firefox, we also have GNOME Web or Epiphany, and Totem or GNOME Video, and the weather. So what we're going to do now is jump into the control center and test out how it's going to install Steam for us from the non-free repositories. So again, we're going to go into Mageia control. I'll tell you what, we're doing the welcome screen. I think that's where we found it. So we're going to go into Mageia welcome screen, go over to here, which is applications, and we're going to test out installing Steam in games. And while we're here, we're also going to get the Mageia theme extra, which is community made background images. Yeah, why not? Let's grab that. Okay, so you're about to install the following software packages on your computer. Mageia theme extra, proceed. Is that done? So that's done. Okay, so we're just going to quickly install Steam as well, and then while that's installing, we'll check out some of these wallpapers. So I thought it might have been a theme as well, but it appears that it's just wallpapers, but we'll double check that anyway. So password prompt once more. Okay, so some requested packages cannot be installed due to unsatisfied libmassaglue1. Continue installation anyway. Let's continue anyway. We'll see if it works. If not, we'll just skip over that for now. Okay, so we've just gone onto the Mageia forums here, and all we need to do for Steam to actually install is enable a couple of repos, which we have done. So now we should be good to go to install Steam. So I'm going to pause the video here while this finishes, and we'll be back in just a moment. Right, so Steam has installed absolutely fine without any issues. So what we're going to do now is just run around CSGO for a few seconds, check the frame rates, and then we'll continue with the rest of the video. Okay, so we've just joined a random casual game, and we're just going to run around for a minute and keep an eye on the frame rates and make sure it all feels nice and smooth. So we're at around about 250 FPS at the moment, and I'm getting no jitters, and everything is feeling nice and smooth. So I think we're about to die though, but that's all good. Yeah, oh no, we got one in the head there. No, we got him through smoke. Right, let's just go and get ourselves killed. And then we'll jump out of this. There we go. But there we go, so gameplay was nice and smooth. I got no random jitters, and the frame rate was pretty much what I would expect it on this hardware. Next up, let's go and see if we can install a different web browser, perhaps Chromium, and we'll see if it's in the repos of the package manager. So let's get out of Steam. And now we're going to open up the install or remove packages, and we're going to go ahead and search for Chromium. Okay, so we're just going to very simply just search for Chromium. And I do believe we've got it right there. So we're going to go ahead and apply this install. Okay, it's going to grab some dependencies and click apply. So I'm going to pause the video here while this is installing. It's quite a lot that it's going to be downloading with additional space of 420 MB. Okay, so that has installed absolutely fine, and here we have Chromium. Now I am going to check the default applications and also change the web browser over to Chromium. And while we're in there, we'll see what it does to open up other file formats like images, etc. So we're just going to type in default applications and take a little look at what we've got going on. So of course our default web browser is Firefox. Let's switch that over to Chromium. Mail is Evolution. Calendar is also Evolution. Do we have the GNOME calendar installed? I don't think we do. We'll leave that on Evolution. Music is Rhythmbox. Videos is GNOME Video or Totem, and Photos is GIMP. So we'll leave that. We'll change that over to Shotwell Viewer. You don't really want to always be opening up GIMP when you just want to have a quick preview of an image. So we'll go for Shotwell Viewer like so. Now, I'm not too sure if this comes installed with Flatpaks or Snap support, so let's have a little look at that. Flatpak list. So we don't have Flatpak, and what about Snap? We don't. So what I'm going to do then is jump onto the FlatHub website and see if we can install Flatpak on Mageia and then test it out with a Flatpak installation. So we're going to go to flathub.org, and we're going to go to the quick setup and look for the Mageia icon, which I do believe is right there. Okay, so we can install it using either DNF or URPMI, and I think DNF has been available on Mageia since I think version 6, but we can double check that towards the end. So let's install it with DNF. So we're going to run that command with sudo, and then after that we're going to add the FlatHub repo, and then we'll test out installing Kdenlive to edit today's video on, and then we'll see how we go with that. We will need to do a restart after we've added the repo though. Okay, so that has finished installing Flatpak. Let's go ahead and add the repository for FlatHub, type in our password, and then we'll do a quick reboot, test it out with installing Kdenlive, and then we'll check a couple more things out and then wrap it up with some final thoughts. Okay, so we've just gone ahead and installed the Flatpak version of Kdenlive, so let's now see if it's in our activities overview by just opening up activities and typing in Kdenlive, and there we go. So Flatpak applications have installed absolutely fine from the FlatHub repo, and there you can see the latest version available of Kdenlive from flathub.org. Very nice. So we did see if there was any additional wallpapers, didn't we, when we was installing? Let's have a quick look to see what the wallpapers actually are. Right, not a whole load there, but we won't worry about that too much. Now, to wrap things up, I do want to see if the exFAT is all working with an external hard drive, which I've already plugged in, and it's found it and mounted it absolutely fine without any issues at all. So while we're in here, we'll now do a quick media test with the GNOME video that I done a little while ago, and it should open it up in GNOME Video or Totem by default, and there we go. So media playback is absolutely fine as well. I think I'm going to wrap it up there, but for a first look, I've actually really enjoyed it. I think it's made a nice change from, you know, the sort of Ubuntu, Debian, Arch-based distributions that we're quite used to seeing on the channel now, and it feels quite stable and secure, and it's been quite snappy, and I've not noticed any sort of weird bugs or issues while we've been taking a look at it. So I will leave a link in the description to the release notes if you want to learn more. Thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please subscribe and also join the Discord. There'll be a link in the description. I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.